Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's Yaman Alassaf, and today inshallah we'll be seeing the third lecture of embryology in CVP, which is the aortic arches. So let's start with it. Basically, just connected with the last sessions, we took the endocardial tube and how each part of it will give rise to a part of the heart. So today we will be focusing mainly on the truncus arteriosus, and basically you have to know that above the truncus arteriosus there is this space. So this space is called the aortic sac. Okay, so from the aortic sac we'll be getting the aortic arches. And you have to know that the aortic arches and the arch of aorta are two different things. The aortic arches are these things, and that's what I'm gonna explain later. But the arch of aorta is like it's basically the second part of the aorta, which is just above the ascending aorta. So that's the arch of aorta that we have in our body. Okay. So let's start with the aortic arches. So basically, we have in the fetal life, the baby have these things in the pharyngeal part, which is called the pharyngeal arches. So an arch mean like an elevation, and a pouch mean a depression. So that's an arch and that's a pouch. And that's like, as you can see, like there's this arch and then it goes and then it come back, and that's a pouch. Okay, so from a superior view, as you can see, we have these pharyngeal arches. So for each pharyngeal arch it will be supplied by one artery, and that's what we'll be seeing later, because many of them like will persist and many of them will die. So that's what we'll be seeing later. But till now, just you have to know that there's this thing called an arch and this thing called a pouch. Okay, and each one of these arches is supplied by a cranial nerve and an artery and a muscle. But you just focus on the arteries. Okay, so let's start with the aortic arches and the arteries. So basically, we have as I said before, or I don't know if I said it or not, but basically we have six aortic arches on each side. So 6 plus 6 equal 12, and we have six arches on each side, and we will be seeing how which one will persist and which one will die. So let's start from above, and from above we will take the first and the second one. So the first and the second one will die, and why they will die? Because basically the heart cannot give blood directly to the arteries far away, and so here's, for example, the heart, and the first and the second one are really far away, so he can't give the blood directly, so they will just die. And then the third one will give the carotid arteries. Okay, so that's for the third one, it's carotid arteries. And the fourth one will give the arch of aorta, and you have to know this. So basically the fourth arch, aortic arch, or the fourth artery, will give the arch of aorta. That's the fourth one. Then you have the fifth one that will die immediately or will not even grow, and you don't really have to focus on it, but you have just to know that the 1, 2, and 5 will die. And then you have the sixth one, which will give basically the pulmonary arteries and the ductus arteriosus. So that's what you have to know in this slide. But there's some details that you have to know and that are really important. So basically, as we all know, we have only one arch of aorta. We don't have two. And if you focus, we have a right one, and that's a left, and that's a right. Okay, and we have a left one and the right one, and a left arch of aorta, left aortic arch and right aortic arch for the fourth one. So basically we can divide them into into a proximal part and a distal part. Okay, so this is the proximal part of the fourth aortic arch, and this is the distal part. As you can see, it's one of it's exactly like the first and the second one. It will die. So the distal part of the right fourth aortic arch will die. Why? Because we have only one arch of aorta, so that's why we can't get a second one, because then we will have a congenital disease, and we will see that congenital disease later on. Okay, so that's it basically for the fourth one. You have to know that that the distal part of the right fourth aortic arch will disappear, because we only have one arch of aorta, and the proximal part will give us the right subclavian artery. Okay, so the right subclavian artery will come basically from the proximal part of the fourth aortic arch. Then, as you can see here, like there is like a difference between the six, the left and the right six aortic arch. So basically, we divided them also into a proximal part. Just to move this so you can see. So basically, we divided them into a proximal part and a distal part. So that's the proximal part, and that's the distal part. And for the right and the left one, so the proximal part in both of these, the proximal part in both of these will give us a pulmonary artery. So the right proximal part of the sixth aortic arch will give the right pulmonary artery. The left part of the left part of the sixth aortic arch will give the pulmonary artery. But the difference is mainly on the distal part, because the distal part of the left sixth aortic arch will give the ductus arteriosus, as you can see here, but the right one will disappear. And that's what you have to know. So basically, you can say on the right side, there's two difference between the right and the left side. On the fourth aortic arch, the distal part will disappear because we have only one arch of aorta, and on the sixth aortic arch, the distal part also, so the two distal part of the fourth and the sixth aortic arches will disappear. And that's it basically for this one. So just to review like fastly, you have the first and second and fifth one will disappear, and also the fourth one, the distal of the fourth one, and the distal part of the sixth one. Okay, and for the arteries that will persist, basically you have the third one. Okay, that will give the common carotid arteries. The fourth one will give the arch of aorta, and it's only the left side, because on the right side the distal part will disappear, and it will give also the right subclavian artery. And finally, for the sixth artery, it will give the pulmonary arteries and the ductus arteriosus only on the left side, because on the right side it will disappear. Okay, and also if you're asking from where does it come, the left subclavian artery, you have to know that the left subclavian artery is derived like entirely from the left seventh intersegmental artery. That's the left seventh intersegmental artery, and from here comes the left subclavian artery. So that's it for the arteries, and now you just have, there's like one point that you have to know before the end of this lecture, that or like 2 points, basically the laryngeal nerves, and they are really important. And if you understood the slide before, you will understand this slide, and it's really easy, but it's really important, and it came many times in the past questions. Basically, you have to know that the right recurrent laryngeal nerve is always behind the subclavian artery. Why? Because as you can see here, we said that the distal part of the sixth artery will disappear, of the right sixth aortic arch will disappear. And why? Basically it will disappear. Okay, so that's why when, for example, the right recurrent laryngeal nerve tries, for example, to come here, he can't because like there is nothing to stay on it. So he will go up, and he will find the fifth aortic arch, but it will die, so he won't like come to it. And then finally he will goes to the fourth one. And we said on the right fourth aortic arch we'll be getting the subclavian artery. So that's why the right recurrent laryngeal nerve, it will be behind the subclavian artery. But for the left one, it will be lower, and that's because basically on the distal part of the sixth aortic arch, on the left side, we'll be getting we have the ductus arteriosus. So when the left when the left recurrent laryngeal nerve sees the ductus arteriosus, he will just remain on it, and that's why that's all you have to know for the nerves. So basically, the right one, it will be behind the subclavian artery, and the left one, it will stuck with the ductus arteriosus. Okay, so right, it will be with the right subclavian artery, and the left one will be with the ductus arteriosus. Okay, that's why the left one is lower. So if he asks you a question about that, that's it basically. And finally, just a congenital disease that the Dr. Paul talked about is the double aorta. To understand it, basically, we have just to go back to this slide. We said that this distal part of the fourth aortic arch will die, and it will not persist. But in case it persists, which is like 1%. Of people in 1% of people it will persist. Basically, if it persists, you will have a second. Oh my god. So basically, if it persists, you will have a second aortic arch of aorta. So if you have a second arch of aorta, it will compress the thing between them, which will be the trachea and the esophagus. And that's what you have to know about the double aorta. Just the distal part of the fourth arch of aortic arch will persist, and it will compress the trachea and the esophagus. And that's it for this lecture, and merci.